So Carey, we're out here at Zaca Station for the RM-Z intro, and we're sitting there just chatting, and I was just cracking up thinking about what a journey your life has been. I mean, from when you and I first became friends, you were, privateer racing, and the Hart Luck guy with his baggy gear and everything. So, man, what a journey. Did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams you'd be where you are today?
It's definitely been a crazy run, like I never, especially, mentally kind of going back to, back in the late 90s, and I hit like a weird turning point, and luckily freestyle kind of reeled me back in. But after Supercross in '98, I was done. Like I wasn't getting any support, and back then it was like a very clean-cut image, and I had tattoos and was wearing baggy gear racing, and I almost hung it up and went back to school. And then the freestyle thing kind of started to take off, and was getting little gigs here and there, and it kind of took off and running. And then then it just opened up a whole new world and segued into businesses. And yeah, it's been a pretty wild ride, and to be here, sitting here, and my semi's down the road at Castillo's place, and to have a Supercross team and doing a motorcycle test for Suzuki is pretty amazing.
So okay, 98 KX250, flesh gear baggies, made a main in baggy gear.
Yep.
It was a struggle back then, and you were definitely a sore thumb. Stood out, the baggy gear guy. But how was it for you segueing into the freestyle thing? It
was kind of like an overnight thing. Like I said, I'd been doing a lot of film trips, and back then it was just filming primarily. When I wasn't racing, and I wrapped up the Supercross series in '98, and if I remember right now, back then it was kind of like me and Jason Thomas and like Ryan Huffman were like the three guys kind of making mains, and and those guys went on to get rides, and the phone wasn't ringing. And I remember going home. I remember driving back home after Vegas Supercross, and I didn't even do the outdoor series that year. I was just kind of like a whip puppy dog, and I figured, what, I'm just going to take the summer off, and I'm going to enroll in UNLV and start going back to school. I was going to go be an accountant, which isn't that random. And I got the phone call to do the Warped Tour, and so I said, all right, I'll go on the road for this summer. I'll go spend 6 weeks. I'm gonna make like $1,000 a week and per diem. So save up a little bit of cash to start school, and come home and enroll. And literally it kind of snowballed. I did Warped Tour, and then I came back, and there's a couple like little one-off contests. I made like $1,500 at the Costa Mesa jump contest with like me and Metzger and a few other guys, and I just kind of kept riding the wave. I'm like, all right, next month, all right, next semester I'll sign up, next semester, and it literally just bit by bit. And I think that's kind of why it kind of worked so well for me, because it wasn't like this pressure, like, all right, I'm gonna go do this. I was already out the door. I just figured, I'm just gonna make a couple bucks and see how it goes. And it's just, here I am 20 years later almost.
I remember the first time I saw a photo of the heart attack. I was, holy shit. Talk about that. Everyone asked you about the backflip. Talk about the heart attack. Where'd you get the idea for that?
Well, the funny thing is, like, that I was doing every summer, actually summer and winter times, I was doing the Warped Tour, and for me it was paid practice. We would do ramp-to-ramp setups. We'd do 3 demos a day, 6 days a week, and I was just going out trying new stuff. That's how I learned how to do seat grabs. Kawasaki that year had that weird handle, and I started grabbing it. You start doing that much riding 3 times a day, you start to try to get a little creative, and I didn't actually realize that's what was happening. I didn't know my feet were kind of going as high. Back then, before I was having fused spines, I guess I was flexible, and I didn't realize it until I started seeing photos of it. And I remember Troy, I think he was filming like Wrathchild. He came out to Warped Tour and filmed with us one day, and he was one that kind of said something like, yo, like, do you see this? And showed me some playback, and my feet were way above my head. I'm like, I didn't even really realize it. It all kind of felt the same to me. So it was just like a natural evolution. And then taking that to Rhode Island that year, it kind of was a big deal. So. And then,
so you, could you have been the first guy to cut a grab hole?
Well, like I said, in '98, the Cowie had that natural grab hole, and
but it was little.
It was tiny. Yeah, it was tiny. But like I said, you spend 6 weeks on Warped Tour hitting ramp to ramp all day long. You start getting creative, like finding new places to hook hands and feet to, and I learned seat grabs in '98 on Warped Tour, and I came home to that Costa Mesa contest, and I won that contest with a seat grab. And I remember doing it, and my buddies I was on tour with, Link and Feist and everybody, they'd seen it all summer, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But to go to Costa Mesa and do it, and and beat Metzger and all the all the dudes at the time, it was it's kind of a big deal.
Cool. So we have a feature coming out in the September issue about the backflip and the evolution of it and everything, but just real briefly reflecting on it, I mean, you completely changed the sport of freestyle. And was there a race to do the backflip, or were you the only guy that was thinking of doing it back then? Let me know.
I don't know, honestly, if there's a race, because at that point, you know, I kind of got burned down living in California. I moved back to Vegas. I was living next door to TJ Lavin. Me and him were like inseparable. We would ride BMX in the morning and go to the local moto track at night. I had one jump set up at the local moto track, and I think spending so much time with TJ and, you know, watching him do flips and spins and stuff on his bike, that's when we kind of started talking about it, you know. And so he told me, he's like, look, I know the guys at Woodward really well, you know, Ed and Gary and those guys out there. He's like, let's go out there, teach you how to flip a bicycle, get you comfortable upside down, and see where it goes. And so we actually went out to Pennsylvania and spent about 7 days there, and I mean, did hundreds and hundreds of flips on my bike into the foam pit and the resi mats, and kind of took it step by step, and just got very comfortable being upside down. And like I said, the natural progression was just to take it to dirt. And I remember coming back from Woodward, and you know, a few months went by, and then me and TJ were talking about, like, you know, what's the ideal situation, you know, like, you know, going back then, in theory, you think, okay, you need a perfectly good transition vert wall, because, you know, you got to go straight up, you know, because that's just the only thing you can really think of. You don't think about flipping in a gap. And you know, we were playing around the dirt and kind of shoveling stuff out, and I remember I built kind of like this cliff jump on my dirt landing out there, and I was just hitting it and just kind of visualizing, you know, like the bike was really smooth and stable, and it wasn't like compressing super hard. So I think this is it. Yeah. So you know, my old man, he built the Gravity Games course that year, so we kind of just mocked off of one of the landings what we built out at my course and sent it.
Nice. Was there ever any like question or doubt, like, man, will the bike quit running when it's upside down or anything? I mean, because I know when we heard about the backflip the first time, or you were thinking of it, I was just like, dude, you can't backflip a motorcycle. You know,
I think the biggest thing for me was, I mean, look, we've all gone off a jump and your bike stalls, and, you know, you can land with the clutch in or whatever, like, you can compensate that. The big question was just if I was going to get the inertia going, like, actually get that thing spinning around. And you know, I had in my head like this big drastic, when I first started doing flips on bikes, like this big drastic grunt pull, and you know, it really wasn't that. Like, I learned on a bicycle, like, it's all about, you know, your body posture. And so like I said, it was kind of the unknown, and you know, back then I was young and dumb, and I still bounced when I hit the dirt, so I figured that was the best time of any.
Okay, cool. So transitioning forward a couple steps, you go from freestyle, and the next thing was Hart Huntington tattoo, right? I mean, how did that come about? I mean, the 50 cent version of it.
I mean, really, in a nutshell, I wanted to do something that, you know, I wanted to start a business. You know, originally, the funny thing is, back then, I was kicking around the idea of doing like an action sports bar. You know, I was gonna, you know, do a sports bar in Vegas. It's pretty common. And then when I first moved back to Vegas, you know, I'd spend a lot of time at Soul Expressions and all these cool tattoo shops in Southern California, and there was no really good tattoo shops. So I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna, just for a fun little business, no, nothing crazy, like a boys club, place to go hang out, I'm gonna open a tattoo shop. Then I started talking with, I got introduced to George Maloof at the Palms, and me and him started talking, and I kind of figured, like, what do you think about doing a tattoo shop in your casino? And George was pretty cutting edge, you know, back then. He was, you know, one of the first casinos with a nightclub in it, and he's like, sounds like a plan. And it literally was just a little hobby thing. It was just supposed to be a little thing on the side that, you know, didn't really take too serious, more like a place to hang out. And I think the effects, it's kind of funny, like, you know, you look at injuries in a very negative light with motocross, you know, like career-ending injuries, and, you know, it's kind of the plague with motocross riders. But at the same time I had this big rollout to do this tattoo shop, I had a just devastating injury on the Tony Hawk Tour, and you know, broke both my legs, both my arms, almost killed me, almost died. I didn't ride for a good 3 years. Yeah. And I didn't, you know, I didn't ride for about 3 years on it, but I was already in motion. We were getting ready to open the shop, and so I come home, I kind of recuperated to the point where I could walk again, because I was in a wheelchair for a couple months, and I knew I wasn't, if ever, going to ride a motorcycle again, so I just put all of my time and energy into this tattoo shop, and that's where it kind of snowballed into doing the TV show and doing the clothing business and all the stuff around it. But I just immersed myself for that next 18 months in that business. So
maybe that accounting degree that you never got keep coming in handy to count all that money, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't so easy in the beginning, man. It was actually a really tough business, because pre-TV shows, you know, tattoos were extremely taboo, and it was a little bit more understood in Vegas, but still isn't what tattooing is today. So, you know, when we did that TV show, it really blew the door wide open.
How was it doing the TV show? Was it really? Because I mean, I've been around some reality shows that are kind of scripted. Was it a real reality show, or was it like, did you handpick the customers who were going to get certain tattoos? Yeah,
reality TV, it's completely changed from the time when we did Ink to now. I mean, back then it was actually a little too much reality. I mean, it was literally fly on the wall. I mean, we would spend probably 18 to 20 hours a day shooting. I mean, just cameras rolling, just waiting for something to happen. And, you know, we did 3 seasons of Inked, and, you know, it would take us about 4 months at a time to shoot a season. And we did 4 seasons of it, and it got to the point where I couldn't focus on the other business aspects of it. I was just focused on this damn TV show, and the business was starting to suffer a little bit. I mean, as much as it was building it up, it was suffering a little bit. And then kind of the straw that broke the camel's back with me with the television stuff was that's when they wanted to start placing people and creating love triangles. And, you know, so our last season I said, you know what, guys, I'm done after this.
Yeah. How did that work? Like, people that came to get a tattoo had to sign a release that they were going to be on TV, or was there compensation for them? Like, did they get their tattoo free if they're on the show? Or?
You know, if I remember right, I mean, year 1, it was all pretty loose. You know, I mean, people would come in, like I said, because we'd be shooting for 18 to 20 hours a day. If somebody came in, they had like an idea for like a, you know, a memorial tattoo or something family based or whatever it might be. You know, because that's usually how the conversation starts with a tattoo artist and a client. You know, like, oh, I want this tattoo because. And so if there would be like an interesting story along the way, we'd be like, hey, how about this? We'll pay for half your tattoo, and if you let us film it for television and do like a little Q&A afterwards. And it was extremely just really organic and real at that point. It wasn't all this made up crap now.
You're pretty famous, dude. Where do you think most of your fame and recognition came from?
I would say it definitely started out with the tattoo show. You know, I did my TV show with the tattoo shop. I did Surreal Life. You know, I've done a handful of TV over the years. You know, and then obviously in more recent years, probably snowballed because of my wife, because I mean, she's larger than ever right now. But and I appreciate it, you know, because I mean, it's great to be recognized, and the people that are like, oh yeah, you're the guy from the tattoo show, or you're from you know, that MTV show. But you know, but there's also times where it's like, you know, I appreciate that, but at the same time it's like, you know what, I was actually kind of the dude in motocross. Like, I had a really good, solid motocross career. Like,
I've got a trick named after.
I had a few firsts, you know, but they're like, oh yeah, you're the guy in the tattoo shop, or I saw you on your red carpet with your wife, you know. So it's like a slippery slope, but I appreciate it all. How
do you feel when you're written about in the tabloids or general media things as motocross champion Carey Hart?
Oh God, the tabloids. You might have to change the memory card. I'll go off on a tangent. It's frustrating. You know, I mean, it gets a little frustrating. You know, I mean, you know, pop culture has changed so much in the years, and they want to see what you've eaten for breakfast, and you know, and it's hard. It's hard right now. You know, like trying to raise a little girl and have her understand, like, you know, why are all these crazy people chasing my mom and my dad, and why are they taking my picture? You know, it's hard. It's had a different. Has a different dynamic now than it used to. It used to be kind of fun and, you know, whatever, great. You get a picture turn up in People magazine, and now, you know, when you're trying to protect a 3-year-old and she doesn't really understand, it's pretty frustrating.
Yeah. So, okay, fast forward to now. You're a privateer, struggling to make mains, pay your bills from race to race. Now you own a race team that's got factory Suzuki backing, and guys are coming to you begging for rides. I mean, how does that feel? It's such a strange twist.
It's definitely surreal, you know, to be in the position with the race team, you know, that we built over the years, and you know, we're a factory Suzuki race team. You know, that was always my aspirations as a racer. I mean, back then we were in box fans, but you know, I wanted to be in that factory box fan with that factory motorcycle, and it's a trip, you know, like I love, honestly, I genuinely, I don't do it for money because there's no money made in this sport. I mean, all the money made goes back into the team to make the team better. But I love going to the races so much, and I love being involved with the guys. And you know, since Ricky's come on, and Mark Johnson, our whole technical side, like, I love going to the races and learning about this stuff and working with Kaipo and like really understanding like the nuts and bolts, because I never had that good stuff as a racer. You know, I feel like I'm pretty good at marketing, and I'm pretty good at, I guess, you know, trying to sell some sponsors, but I've never really understood the technical side. And but I really just generally love doing the race team. It's so much fun to go to the races. And you know, last year Redbud was my first, you know, kind of quote unquote factory race. You know, I got to do AM day out of our factory semi, and I had a pretty bitchin' bike built for me, and it was I think that was the most rewarding, was when I pulled to Redbud last year and I got to pull my bike off the stand under the racetrack.
Heck yeah. Well, dude, it's been awesome watching your career progress and to see where you are today compared to when we were hanging out in the tunnel at Pontiac or something. I mean,
yeah.
So congratulations.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks for the time.
All good, thank you.